Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. I'm Stephanie Fisher. I'm a licensed counselor here in the state of Michigan, and I'm owner and operator of In Progress Counseling. Over the last little series of videos here, we've talked specifically about transitions, how immobilizing they can be, how overwhelming they can be. And in the most recent video, we talked about that paralysis that can happen when I know what I'm stepping away from, but I don't yet understand what I might want to be walking towards. We've talked about slowing it down and trying to accurately inventory, hey, what would happen if I chose this direction or this direction or this direction? And we kind of future cast and we ask really discerning questions about what aligns with my giftings, what might I most enjoy, what do I have resources to actually push towards, what's the time commitment that it might cost me. But I want to be very clear that regardless of how well put together my plan is, none of the plans I draw for myself involve certainty. Now, they might include probability. They might include, even if I've realistically managed my expectations, there's general outcomes that I can be stretching towards. There's some, preferences that I'm having that might come to fruition. But friends, certainty is not a thing. It's a really interesting experience to get to teach counselors in training and say, to a room full of people who are all in the same program, we're all learning the same content. And while we're sharing that space together and we all have rather different aims and different objectives, none of us have certainty of where we're going to land, even though we're all going through the same process. As I'm sitting with my cohort and we're all coming to dissertation, you're talking about 10 people who have had very similar experiences over the last 3 years. And each of us is going in incredibly different directions for this final capstone project. There isn't certainty in any of the directions we're choosing. There's probability, there's potential, there's likely outcomes. There's not certainty because too much of life is unaccounted for in our decision making. Number one, I can't sort through, and we've talked about this historically, even as I make the cognitive choices, I can't pre-feel all the emotions and all the adjustments that come as I step towards these things that I'm wanting to pursue and accomplish. It's possible over time that I've chosen a direction that's not the best fit for me, or it's past my capacity, or I go in that direction and I'm actually pretty bored and it's understimulating, or there's friction and barriers that show up as I'm trying to make these next steps, or there's new life pivots, there's big life moments that might happen and change things like, a marriage or a child or an illness or a relocation. There's too many unknowns. And so even as I'm future casting, I am understanding that certainty is not a part of the decision-making process. There's potential, there's likelihood, there's outcomes that I'm aiming towards, so I'm walking in certain directions, but there's a lot of faith in future-oriented decision-making. And so that's what I said to my students over this last week. I said, I had heard on a podcast a long time ago that the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is certainty, because if you had certainty, you don't need faith. You have a guaranteed outcome. Well, that's not life. And so I said to my students, I said, all of you are sitting in this space here and none of us have certainty, but we all have faith. We're all saying, I think if I keep showing up and I keep doing the work and I keep stretching myself, I will be formed in the process into someone that I'm actively becoming. I'm becoming a counselor in training because I've committed time and effort and resources and intentionality in this direction, with the assumption that there will be a payoff at some point, but I cannot tell you what the payoff is. I can only tell you how those things might emerge in my story, and there might be things that come along that don't even occur to me yet. That process of becoming is so interesting. When we pick a direction, what it does is it does foreclose other options. When I go to do my PhD in counselor ed, it ruled out doing it in psychology. It ruled out doing it in some sort of health and nutrition sector. Those were of interest too. But picking the CES, it aligned with where I thought I might want to go in the future. And then it's committed action in that direction with the hope, with the faith, with the intent of it working out together. And with the understanding that certainty is not a part of the process, who we become over time with committed effort, that is just that's what happens in identity formation, and that's why I get to work in that area specifically with clients. We work in forming identity as we go through transitions, but we don't get to predetermine where we land quite typically. We can anticipate, we can look at probability, we can have the best laid plans. We just don't get certainty in the process, which, friends, that relieves us of having to pick the exact right direction. That's not a thing. There's options, we pick a direction, we engage in committed action, and over time, really cool things become.